love for you to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your background.
Hey, I'm Columbus Brown. I'm a former aerospace engineer turned IT consultant and strategy. As far as my mission statement, it's all about developing leaders. It's about building communities of purpose and designing meaningful things that impact the world. I do that working as a consulting director for From Here On, where we do business design and enterprise architecture. And that's who I am. I'm based out of Irving, Texas right now, and I live in the Dallas Fort Worth area.
Fantastic. So, when, on past shows for anyone who's joined us, I always talk about the value of going to conferences and the amazing people you meet. And Columbus is one of the people that I met through Amy's conference circuit, the project summit, project world, business analyst world.
Hmm.
I think the first time we might have met was when it was in Dallas, but then seen each other in many different events. And just the wealth of knowledge that Columbus has brought to the teams he's worked with, the companies and the experience, and being able to have these great conversations. This is really why connecting with different people is so amazing, is to hear their stories and to learn from them. And what really led to today's show was a message that Columbus sent me on LinkedIn. So I get a pop-up, I look over, and one of the presentations that I'm famous or infamous for was can the zombie apocalypse help you prepare for your IT projects?
Hmm.
And it's a little bit of prepping, but it's all about how you can leverage your everyday skills to become better at work, use our work skills to become better at home, and overall be better prepared to handle unforeseen things that are going to happen, whether they're personal, family, work, whatever it happens to be. And I get this message that says, thanks for all it was along the lines of, thanks for all the tips. The disaster hit us here in Dallas, and thankfully we were prepared. And I really love that and was like, all right, I need to hear what's going on, because this was during the big snow storm and freeze in Texas that hit earlier this year. So what happened? Like, you actually had to live through that nightmare. What
Yeah.
was it like? And we're going to talk today about some of the lessons learned from that and how we can apply them to other situations.
So we can go there. I first have to give you a big shout out. You talked about the first time we met, and there's two things that really stuck out to me. I was like, what in the world is this guy talking about zombies? Like, that's just it's crazy, it's uncomfortable, but it's catchy, like maybe that's his thing. Bob the BA, may he rest in peace, had his thing. You always had the green thing. That really stuck out to me. The other thing that stuck out to me was on every slide that you had branded your name and your contact information. And so I say it to say you never know the influence that you have. We go in, we speak a lot of times, and you might have like 10 people, or you might have 200 or 500 or 1,000, but you never really know how you impact. And that interaction impacted me. And going to the what happened in Texas, as a result of that, that was my introduction to prepping. I grew up in I was a Boy Scout, so I knew about, how to make fire and doing those kind of things. But just the whole concept of getting ready, you back then, that's when I got it, and I had my little closet of items, should something hit the fan, that I had put together, and it led to that. So, you know, when when we had this freeze, setting it up, we had 2020. It's like the end of the world. I had some really tough issues happened to me personally. I had a medical situation in the middle of COVID, had to go to the hospital. So just horrible. It was like horrible. And we were like, 2021 is going to be so awesome. It's going to be great. I can't wait till 2021 gets here. And, it's hot as hell in Texas, and hell froze over. It's like, who would have thought that it would get that cold? So first of all, I think it was the second or third week of February. I was setting up for a meeting with a CIO, and I'm like ready to go, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna snow. Okay, whatever. We're already in. Not a big deal. And it kept snowing. It got colder and it got colder, and the snow didn't stop. And that's when it started. I believe it was like a Monday. the power went out. I'm like, okay, got the backup. I got the backup battery thing on the network, so the network should stay up for 2 or 3 hours. So I can still communicate, figure out what's going on. Not a big deal. And so then for the next 5 days, and we were like one of the lucky ones. Our power cycled on and off somewhere between a 2 to 4 hour increment for 5 days, which was awful because
Wow.
you'd get into this pattern where the power would turn on, and then you try to charge your batteries, you try to cook or do what you need to do, and then you're like, and so on day one it was annoying. On day two, I'm like, this could get pretty serious. So first wave was it's really cold, and the heat is turning on and off, right? The temperature's dropping. And then the next piece was, oh, okay, well, because the power's been off for 2 or 3 days, the water treatment is not appropriate, and so we want you to boil your water. Okay, now it's day three, and it's been so cold. Unlike you know our friends above the Mason-Dixon line, we don't design our houses for like sub-zero temperatures. So
Right.
pipes start to freeze. Pipes start to freeze. Things start to so like you can't get the bad water that's flowing through. People's pipes were breaking, and it got in a lot of areas. It got a little bit. It got pretty crazy. You had people in apartment buildings who were sleeping in the cars overnight. There were families that had no power at all. I heard stories of people burning their fences inside their fireplace just to stay warm.
Wow.
And so I have a couple of pictures wanted to show you guys just to let you know I'm not exaggerating. Um, so let me pop this up there and share. But like this storm was not normal for us. I am from Maryland, so I'm used to the snow. And that was when it first started. It's like, okay, and then it got real, and may not be a big deal if you're from Ohio, but like this shut our city down, just totally shut our city down. But I'm like, Hans prepared me for this. I know that I'm not trying to, I'm not an extreme where I'm like I got like 3 years worth of food and my own water supply and solar power. I'm not there, but I'm like, I know how to not get in line to go to the Walmart or to hoard gas or like the things that my family needed to get through that if it got really crazy, had thought through those things. Gas stove, gas fireplace. And what I didn't think about or plan for, which was unexpected, was that the gas fireplace has an electric pilot light and a safety mechanism, which runs on AC. And it does have a battery backup, but for whatever reason, mine wasn't working.
Oh no.
And so ironically, I needed electricity to make fire, which made no sense to me. So being an engineer, I'm like, oh, I'll pull up, when the power turned back on, I got on the internet, I'll pull up the schematic, I'll figure it out. And I ended up taking one of my battery backup packs and wiring it and putting it next to the fireplace and just plugging it into the AC. So I basically had a DC to AC converter so that I could run my gas fireplace, which was just like really extreme. It's like I had prepared for the backup, but now I'm using the backup battery. I'm using batteries to keep warm and to generate fire. So like that
When
that was like it was just crazy to me that it got to stuff like that.
Well, when you think of a gas fireplace, like how many people have a gas fireplace right now? And you're like, oh, it's easy. If the
Hmm.
power goes off, I'll fire up the gas. But if that gas has a safety shutoff that is electronically controlled,
Hmm.
I, I don't think ours does. I'm certainly curious now, but this is also why I love Columbus and the genius. The first thing he does is, okay, I'm an engineer. I'm going to rewire, do schematics. I'm going to power this. I can figure this out. Sorry, we're not going to recharge the iPad. Heat is more important. But this is a great example of, life keeps throwing you these little curveballs.
Hmm.
You can cry, you can panic, or you can say, all right, that's unfortunate. What do we do next? How do we get
Right,
over it?
right. And things got progressively better, but by the time it got to the point where it's like, well, let's go out and get some fresh stuff, or like find like one option was like, well, what if we go stay somewhere else? Well, the Ramada was $1,500 a night, right? Like the hotels were jacked up the prices, and people were literally freezing. So things that your supply chain or things that you think that would work weren't there. You're on your own. In the grocery stores, there was a run on milk, gas, there was a run on everything. People just lost their minds. And if you wanted to say, what's cooking, you could have some salami, or there's few choice things that were there. um but like that was the experience. It was, and it didn't get better. Even when the power came back on, there was a lot of people who still did not have power. You People, when things started to get warm, then pipes start to break. So just like a real catastrophic situation by some cold weather. And you can look at the news and see, the whole ERCOT, and how that played out. And there was a lot of people who made a lot of money on energy trading in that situation. But I I thought about Hans, and I'm like, just me thinking through those situations helped, but there was in it, but I couldn't have prepared for that. Like I would have never expected it to get that tragic that quick. And
Right.
hmm
Well, the snowpocalypse that happened in Atlanta years ago, and you can, Google the videos, and it's like, well, wait a minute, we know you can't handle snow. It's like,
hmm
no, we can't handle ice. And our ground, same thing in Dallas. The ground never gets cold enough, it never freezes. So when anything hits, it melts, and then it cools enough that it turns into black ice, and you've got
hmm
ice everywhere. And in our case, it was the storm was going to go through North Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky. And over a period of 2 hours, the polar vortex dipped down, covered the entire city and south of the city. And, I watched the same thing from The Office where, oh, it's 9 o'clock, it's snowing, that's pretty, but it's not sticking. Okay, 10 o'clock. All right, it's starting to stick on the top of buildings. Okay. The minute I saw it starting to stick on the sidewalks, I'm like, we're in trouble. If it's sticking to the sidewalks, the roads are going to happen. So quickly, everybody go home. Everybody stop what you're doing, go
hmm
home. Let's just get out of here and we can pick up from home, whatever. And I think the key here is, and you've alluded to it, the importance isn't necessarily to have a plan that can handle anything or handle something specific, but what are those core things? What are those core things we need to operate? And what is our plan? First, what is our plan should something happen in that area?
hmm
And then how do we watch and pay attention? Like you mentioned it at the beginning, that you watch the weather roll through, you're like, cute. All right, this is getting bad. Now I need to start worrying. And then the longer it went, you had to dig deeper into your planning because you were facing new challenges and extending challenges that you really shouldn't have.
hmm so there's a couple of things that stick out to me. And I'll start with the first three. Like, one is accepting the situation. The second part was taking account of what I value and what's most important. And then the third one was around network and community, of who what are the what are the people around me, and how do I communicate with them. So the first was like accepting it, right? So I'm seeing that it's snowing, we're working from home. I need to accept that, what, like, I need to check out of work right now. Um, what's most important is we're down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, shelter, warmth, the Boy Scout stuff, like that stuff. Like, do we have stuff to eat? Check. Do we have a way to keep warm? Check. Is the integrity of the house and the environment and the neighborhood okay? Check. Um, do we have the ability to sleep without freezing? Those things. And then another step up, just are we secure? Like, do I have enough intelligence of what's going on around me? Is my community going into like a state of panic or disruption? And how would I do um, approach that? So, like the whole value piece. First, it's the first piece is like just accepting like something's happened, and then the next part was just around assessing the situation and choosing what I value. And for me, it was like, okay, this is the time just to really think about what I need to do um, to respond, not react, but to respond to the situation. And then the third part was kind of neat because my next door neighbor, we don't really talk much, but when things come up like this, like we partner, and he's ex Air Force, so I know he's got a special set of skills, like Liam Nelson, like I know the guy knows his stuff and he camps and stuff. So it was like, hey, you good? You got water? Or hey, how your pipes doing? On the north side of my house, things are freezing. So like we had that text communication and could share resources. And ironically, my neighbor on the other side, I I didn't know how to reach him aside from going out and knocking on his door. And then we got COVID, and it's kind of weird. And we're in Texas, and we have God-given rights, to protect ourselves. So like you don't want to surprise somebody. So
Very true.
you know, um, but those are like three things that really grounded me in that situation of, hey, this is what's happened, let's deal with it. Two, what do you value, and what's most important, and putting the focus on that. And then the last one was just like your network and checking on family and making sure other family in the area, where are you guys okay, do you guys have resources as well, and just the communicate setting up the communication. So
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of times, we deal with this at work. We have our go-to people, we have our network, we have our teammates, we have our extended network that we can reach out to. Like today, I know we're looking to hire some security advisory for our security team. And I'm going to tap my LinkedIn network to see if anyone there might be a good fit for that. And I
mhm,
think we forget that we've got to build that network and keep nurturing it. We need to stay connected so that it's there when we need it.
mhm,
And the fact that you had a relationship with your neighbor, you could immediately do it. But one neighbor on the other side, you were going to have to start from scratch, and that's going to make it a little more risky or a little more awkward because you don't know, you may not know them as well.
mhm.
So one of the things Steve Jones asked was, do we have, is there official zombie preparedness protection or training and available? Absolutely. There's a website that actually was set up after Hurricane Katrina and a group called Zombie Squad. And their whole goal is to help cities, governments, businesses, individuals, families better prepare for disaster because they realized after Hurricane Katrina hit how poorly prepared not only people were, but the reliance on a system that really, in some ways, failed them.
Mm.
And there were just so many failures. We saw this also in Dallas, where rolling power blackouts, just something that should have we expected it? Well, there should have been some sort of contingency anyway. There's a lot of resources out there. So I'd say, so you mentioned that because of the zombie presentation I did, you started looking into not doomsday and crazy prepping and we need to dig a bunker in the backyard, but just, can we last
But
3 days? Can we last
bunkers are really cool.
Oh, they're so cool, but they're so expensive, and we probably won't use them compared to snow chains and kitty litter and more
Yeah.
battery
Yes.
backups.
Yes.
So when you started thinking about, okay, how long what types of disasters or what types of interference could we survive comfortably? and how can we extend the time? How did you get started? So, to Steve's point, where did you start when you wanted to learn more about this and get a little bit better prepared?
So I'll actually go by like just like um levels. So the first part is if I was in the first situation is I'm by myself or in my car, do I have what I need to be able to get home if I'm within 50 miles and there's no internet? Um, do I have those main things? And so like that's the first piece for me. So like, I have the little there's there's a kit you can get and it's got like emergency water, a little bit like rations. I keep a map of the area, a flashlight. So got a little thing like that in the car of like if I need to have something to eat and nourish myself and walk or like can I do that and can I navigate just to get back home? So like that's one scenario. Um and then the next scenario is, people talk about like, but what's in your bug out bag? Like if you had 12 hours to leave your home, what are the things that you would put in a bag that you could put on your back and take with you? And so then it was like, well, let's put that bag together. What does that look like? Does it, and then, extend that. Like if I needed to leave home with my family, do I have all the things that my family would need to be able to um, leave that situation with short notice and without disturbing them, like have all the things they need except for the personal things so that I could just say, hey, get your recent medication, something that's important to you, and a set of two clothes. Don't worry about toiletries. I've already taken care of that. Don't worry about this. All those things are in the bag, right? Without alarming them. Um, because I think sometimes people take it as like extreme, but it's just prepare. It's being prepared, and like the beauty of something like this is if you like see somebody in despair and you have those kind of things, you also are able to help people, right? Like so, it's not just about hoarding. It's like being prepared not just for yourself but for other people and communities to share resources, right?
We'd made a trip to New York a while back, and we were hiking around Central Park. It was
Hmm.
wonderful. And as we passed, a family was heading the other direction, and one of their young children was crying and upset, and you could just
Hmm.
see they were frazzled and everything was horrible. And I kind of turned and I was like, all right, hate to see somebody, and then realized that the problem when I heard was he had a blister on his ankle from his shoes.
Hmm.
So every time he walked, every step he was taking, and they were going to cut their whole day short because that happened. And so, you know, I from a distance introduced myself and said, hey, I have band aids, I have a first aid kit. Would that help? Like, you may be able to put a band aid over it and probably continue your day. And they're like,
Hmm.
really? So, I had little packets of antibiotic, and I was like, here, take this. Here's some regular, what we consider big band-aids. So you can put that over where the blister really is. And then I actually have some heel band-aids because I have really wimpy heels and my heels hurt all the time. So I will put band-aids on before hiking just so my heel doesn't hurt. I was like, here's a couple extra band-aids. Here's a couple extra packets. Here's some heel band-aids. They're like, no, no. I was like, take them. I've got more in the hotel. But for them, that, like you said, it's the difference where it might have ruined the rest of their day, but simply having a few band-aids on hand and a few that you could give out, they were able to extend their day, and the poor kid wasn't going to suffer anymore.
Hmm. It's those things, or things like there's some things I keep in my bag, like post-it notes, tape, and a piece of paper. Like if I need to leave a message with someone or communicate, those are other ways to communicate. So, the first part, just stuff in my car. Then another piece is like a bug out bag, however extreme you want to take that. Um, and then, stuff for your family at that level. And then you get into like if we did not have access to if we couldn't leave the house for 3 days and there was no power or water, what would I need to get through that? Well, like, clearly, I know now, I need to have an ample battery supply to run my son's iPad because it was traumatic for him. Like every time, it was very traumatic. Like that's close to food, right, in his space. Um, you know, the power thing and flexible power sources and that piece. So what could for 3 days, like what could we do? And then then what about a week or what about a 2 week and what about a 3 week? And so over a period of years, I got to a point where I'm good for on rations for probably like 3 to 4 weeks. Like not a big deal, but it
Excellent.
wasn't, I'm good for 3 to 4 weeks. I'm like, oh, the water's bad, no problem. Got water. I got the water bricks. I love those things. This is not a plug, but the water bricks,
Yep.
you can carry them. You can put food in them. You just put in tap water. You put in the drops, and you can store them in the closet or whatever. It's not going to leak. Um, it's something. It has a handle on it. If you need to ambulate, if you need to move, you can take it with you. You can throw it in the car. Um, so the water bricks was a big piece of that, and then dried food and other things, and then also just thinking about like how you use your pantry and what you have available, ability to cook food, um, just little things like that, or thinking about like, well, how would I flush my toilet? Well, got a 50. In our case, we have two 50-gallon water water heaters, and that's a source of drinking water or
Yep.
flush the toilet. And but here's one that really caught me off guard. I was like, well, what if there's no heat? How I take a hot shower? And I know it's like it's higher up. It's like so a shower's a shower. So I got these. Hans probably knows what I'm talking about. Have you ever seen the sun showers?
Yes, I have.
So I was like, I know how to solve this. Like, I get the sun showers. You put the water in, and it has like reflective on it, and you put it out. Didn't work. Absolute failure. Like, I absolutely like.
It works, but not when you're in the middle of an ice storm.
Mm-mm, mm-mm, just didn't work. You could warm up the water and put it in the bag, but then you got hot water trying to put it in the bag. Um, so that was something I didn't expect. I was like, oh, I'm not worried about taking a warm shower. I'll just use these bags here because there's no water pressure. But yeah, like just simple things, and I'm grateful because it gave me a sense of I ventured out to the store, but like I'm like didn't have all the things that I wanted or needed, but I'm still okay. Like I'm good. Like we didn't have to crack open the dry food at all.
Yep.
And because for us the power cycling on and off, the refrigerator stayed, cold and whatnot.
Good.
But other things I do, like I keep some of those delivery bags that you get from Amazon that have the insulation. I keep empty ones so that if I wanted to take stuff with me from my freezer, I already have bags that are insulated and ready to go. And I have like empty bags and stuff around that. So um, you know, and safely stored some fuel, so enough to be safe, but just I don't like my whole goal, like my goal for my scenario that's expected is I don't want to be in line at the Walmart or in the fuel line. My dad lives in Stone Mountain, so I'll be coming your direction. Like I'm going
Excellent.
to Georgia. I'm going to Georgia. That's my plan because my dad
Yep.
is like a farmer. He does organic farming, and I know he has some land, and he knows how to grow food. That's where I'm going. Like that's my plan. But just different. That's like the planning piece. But there's just stuff that happens that's unexpected. What if we had a tornado and it ripped up the house? And it's like, what do you do next? Like I don't know. But like now I feel like it's not as much as trying to figure out all the scenarios, but the key things are like being willing to like I gotta pivot and acknowledge, okay, this happened. To go back to what is most important right now, and then what is my network of people and method of communication. We're very dependent on
Right.
like those devices, like next door and what was the other one? Facebook. Even though everything was down and the towers, like we got to the point where the generators on the towers were going down, and so when the power came back on, then the Wi-Fi, like your phone stopped working as well.
Right.
And I'm like, I really that shortwave thing, like it's interesting to me now. Or I never thought, like, I always thought that was kind of extreme, but now I'm like,
Yep.
internet over shortwave or those kind of things. That's interesting to me now.
Yeah, and it depends, like you said, it depends on what your priorities are. And the communication is often a piece that people forget. And if you think about everybody in your family, everybody in your network, trying to call or update everybody is too complicated. And so, one
Hmm.
of the simplest solutions to that is to have a centralized check in point.
Hmm.
Let's take a family, for example. Pick somebody, all right, a mom. She's not leaving home, she's in a reliable area. If the disaster isn't near her area, she's the check-in point. Everybody message mom and tell how you are. That way, when you call in and check in, you get an immediate update on everyone
Hmm.
else.
Hmm.
And who's your backup? If mom is in one of the areas that doesn't have power, doesn't have internet, who's the second person? Or maybe mom isn't really reliable, or they're just going to talk too long, and you're like, I have 30 seconds of power, so this needs to be really quick. Maybe it's Columbus who's this, the center of communication, but that call in point rather than a call in tree can dramatically reduce. And then you can set up a time every 12 hours. We're going to do a check in. And if there's not a check in, what are the conditions when, hey, we should send somebody? So if we were closer, like for example, your dad's in Stone Mountain, I'm on the other side of Stone Mountain in Lilburn for the most part. So if your dad had an emergency, you could text me. I could go over and check on him
Hmm.
very easily. So finding, okay, how would we, oh no, it's fine. His phone's just dead.
Hmm.
It wasn't an issue. And so it's like, okay, I'll go over there. I'll check on him. What was the situation? And I'll bring a battery backup.
Right, right. That experience, like, you know, this experience, what it's done for me is like I can't plan for the unexpected. I think that was my revelation. Quick shout out to Amy in Toronto. Hey, Amy, we love you.
Thanks for
Um,
bringing us all together.
yes, seriously. Um, you can't plan for the unexpected. You can't
Right.
plan for every scenario. So, I think about one of the biggest impacts for me is like around as I'm working with clients and we talk about cybersecurity. The the thing is, like, you can do all these things and do all the policies and be ISO 27001, but like you don't know if a breach has already happened now. Like you don't like it could have already happened. So the communication plan and the decisions around how would I address that unexpected situation is actually the most important thing that you can do to protect your environment would be to be able to know what you're going to do and what's the chain of command, how you're going to communicate, like
Right.
who's because that's a it can affect your customers, it can affect your employee interactions, you can be held ransom. But how will you communicate, and what is the breakdown? And so that what do you value, right? And it goes back to those basic things. What will be your process to accept that this has actually happened, right? And process it.
Yep.
Two, what are your values? What is most important? What are the things you're going to seek to protect or deal with? Who are you going to call? Are you going to call the $500 an hour cybersecurity company? Because that's what happens. Like that's you get into
Yep.
that crisis mode, and then like how do you approach that, and who's your network of people, and how do you communicate? So.
And despite what Steve says, no, we're not going to call the Ghostbusters. Although that would be cool if we could. And the offshoot of what you said is finding out what's most important to you, what's most critical, and
Hmm.
then using that. We're not saying, okay, I need to go out and buy a bug out bag and a generator, and I need to buy, a tent and thermal sleeping bags that will let me survive 40 below. And I live in South Texas, where, okay, it's the odds of this happening again are pretty slim, but they could. Instead, what we do, and you mentioned this in yours, you started simple. You started adding a few things. You started adding a few other things and worked on making it well rounded. Top priority: can I get home? For whatever happens, my car dies, whatever. Can I always get home, or can I always get to a safe location? Great
Hmm.
place to start. And for those who think prepping is this big thing, you carry, when times are normal, a work bag, a work backpack, a purse. Guess what? That's daily prepping. You're carrying everything you think you're going to need for the day or might need if something goes wrong.
Mhm.
And when you're shopping, okay, I love SpaghettiOs. I'm going to add an extra can or two. So when you mentioned, hey, we could survive 3 weeks on food, it doesn't mean that you have 3 weeks of horrible freeze dried food that nobody's going to want to eat. It means,
Mhm.
okay, instead of buying a couple cans of black beans because I love black beans, I'm going to buy the flat of 16 cans from Sam's Club the next time I go, and I'm just going to rotate them out. When I get half done, I'm going to buy another one, and
Mhm.
now I have one. Now I have 24 cans. And you just, until you run out of space, you can slowly build and add those items. On the power side, I'll admit, sadly, we don't have a generator. That's one thing
Mhm.
that's on my wish list. But I know that power surges and power drops can destroy electronics. And I know that our favorite item in the TV, my wife, it's the TV. For me, it's the air conditioning. And so I have my TV, our entertainment system, our computers, everything on. I use CyberPower, the large battery backups. Pick them up for about $100 each. They're not cheap, but they work great. So all of our electronics are on these backups, so that if a surge comes through or a drop, it won't burn out the electronics. But
Mhm.
it also gives us backup power to ride through a 2-hour power,
Mhm.
or if there's something longer, I can unplug the items and turn them off in areas where I don't need them and use them in critical areas. And over time, I think I've probably got about 16 to 20 of them throughout the house. My
Mhm.
alarm clock and everything next to my bed is on one. Same thing for my wife. So that's 2 in the bedroom. But then, like you said, for your son, those could be used to recharge devices in addition to more portable. So if you had to go on the road, you probably want a portable backup, and things like the Anker battery backups or portable battery power, you can find them on sale sometimes for $10, $20, $40, and you could get 6 to 12 solid charges on a device off of even the smaller medium sized ones.
Mhm. We have these APCs. They're battery backups, and they actually have like a power pack in them.
Yep.
And so the
Nice.
DC to AC converters, what is it? DC to AC converters, and it's always charged. And so got the network on, like the network on those,
Yep.
like the node, each of the nodes are on those. And the awesome thing about that is like if things got dire, I could use my car to charge those batteries and still
Exactly.
have those essential things. That was the theory. Realistically, they're not. It's going to take a lot of time to charge those kind of things. I'd love to have a generator, um, but there's another side to that too. Is generators are loud and they attract attention. And one of the things that happened
Yes.
was, and I'd like to share this. Like I felt a sense of guilt because our power was going off and on, and we were good, right? And there's two things that were for me like were a contradiction. It's like I'm good. I'm also looking at social media and I'm seeing people drive through neighborhoods and have animosity towards certain neighborhoods where the power didn't go out, right? And I'm like,
Right.
that's security, right? And then I'm also like, how can I have resources and where's the balance of how do I take the extra resources I have to help someone who's in need?
Right.
And that's something like through that situation I really wasn't able to connect. I actually drove out when things warmed up because some people didn't have water, and I threw some water bricks into the back of the car and I went to like a community center and some other places, and I ended up like not sharing, but that's something I want to change in my plan of like how can I securely share resources that I have with others, but
Yep.
still maintain security for myself and my family as well, right?
Yeah, and that's a big issue with the generator. I've had the same concern, and even if you, let's assume you have a 100% quiet generator,
Your lights are
your
on.
lights are on. So it's like, okay, how do we hide so we're not the only house in the neighborhood? Because my dream goal, the reason I haven't bought a gas generator is the Generac and some other companies make these natural gas
Hmm.
generators or even
Hmm.
dual fuel, so I could take propane tanks and power it. But our usually I've never had an instance where our gas and our power went off at the same time, so we could get a whole house generator. It's going to be 5 to 10 grand, so it's a massive investment that we're saving up for.
Hmm.
But that would potentially power the whole thing. But then I sit back and go, okay, the Tesla battery systems and others now have these home batteries that you can charge during low cost energy at night, and you can power your house during the day so that you're paying lower rates. But also potentially these battery systems could run your house for hours to days.
Hmm.
And we're getting close to the point where instead of just having like that APC battery backup you said on your network, but you've got a whole house system that's going to kick in and give you, ride you through those power waves. That's going to be a game changer, I think, in the bug in stay at home prepping.
Hmm. You know what? One of my favorite preps, it's one of my everyday carries is. I'll show it. You ready? Am I? Is it okay to show that kind of stuff here?
Sure.
Okay, so it's just a battery, but, but it's a Dell battery, right? And it's for my
Yes,
lap. It's for my laptop, but it takes. Here we go. It takes. I can do the different Dell connections, but it has USB as
that's
well.
awesome.
And so this was awesome because I could just keep it plugged in. When the power came on, it would charge, and that's one of the things that got me over. Um, and I'm using it today. Something unexpected happened. My neighbor was kind of loud in here, and so I moved into one of these phone booths, and I took my power with me. So, um, I, aside from food and water, like the battery packs are like a really big deal nowadays because
Yeah.
you need it for just about everything.
Well, and look for the items, find companies that are good and reliable, and then I have alerts so when they pop up on sale or flash sale, I buy them when they're on a discount. Like I've become a really big fan of Anker brand, not sponsored, but I was
Hmm.
turned on to them. I've never had one of their products fail, and their batteries have a PowerIQ smart charger, so they won't cut out, they won't overcharge, they won't overheat your devices. But their new portable battery is smaller than that, and it actually will power most of the new laptops that have a USB-C connection. So you can actually power your entire laptop, even a high drain laptop, as well as some of your phones, other devices off of that. And the price is a little higher. It's running about $110 now. But if it goes on flash sale, something like that would be awesome. And then having multiple devices, you've got to top them off and charge them from time to time,
Hmm.
really can get you through those things. And like you showed, the great thing about that is it works with your existing devices. So
Hmm.
it's compatible with your network and your tools, which is really key.
Just having that flexibility, just having the flexibility and different options, was cool. It was cool.
Yep. And as Steve says, having the little, even the tiny ones, like think about when we're in conference. How many times have we been out after an event, sitting at a restaurant, sitting in a bar, and half of the people at the table, their phones are going dead because they've been tweeting all day and they forgot to plug them in. And so I'm always carrying one or two power chargers, and I'm like, here, plug in. And I have a cable that has 3 different adapters on it so people can top off their power. But having one that you can throw in your pocket and it's not uncomfortable, it's an easy prep, and it can make lives so much easier.
Right, right.
Well, we're kind of hitting the normal area, so kind of words of wisdom, parting thoughts that you'd like to share for people that are, hopefully very few of us will ever be through an ordeal that you survived, but we need to think that it's going to happen. Weather is the number one issue we have to deal with. We saw what happened with the lockdown on the pandemic, and it was the same thing. Suddenly, people thought transportation's going to be messed up, stores might close. I need to buy everything. And you saw hoarding, and that's true hoarding, where people buy more than they need because they weren't
Hmm.
prepared. Whereas, I'm sure for you and I, when this happened, it was like, okay, what is my plan? What do we have? Is there anything I'm out of? And for the most part, I said, I want cake and pie. because we're going to turn this into a fun celebration to get over this initial hump and ease the emotional stress. And I don't think the second run is going to be on beer, wine, and alcohol. So I'm going to go ahead and stock up on beer as well, because that goes bad. I want to have, at least 2 weeks of beer in supply, but we really didn't need anything. Little did I know I was actually out of olive oil, which was the oddest thing. I looked at every cabinet. I'm like, how am I out? I always have 3 bottles, but I didn't refill. So what's some of your advice for people that are going to get into prepping, or maybe kind of take it to the next level?
I'd say the whole piece of being centered is really important, right? Um, so just knowing what's most important to you, and like the bug out bag thing is like real, makes it real. So just to make it quick, like if I had to leave everything with this bag on my back, what would that be? And it's not just like a knife or a weapon or like, so for me, like I have a book that was given to my mother by my grandfather. And
Oh, that's
he
awesome.
signed it with and I have a couple of pictures in it. So like I keep that. Um, so that would be one thing, like know what you value. And then the second one, I'll say your network is truly your net worth. I've learned recently with nonprofits and with some entrepreneurial ventures that I don't have to have all the resources to make things happen. Part of my net worth is the people around me and the relationships I build. Because if I have that, I can get access to those different resources or things to do things. So, we people are not a commodity, but there's value in relationships and who you know and tapping into their knowledge and tapping into helping them and so those are the two things I'd leave you guys with is just your network is your net worth and understanding what's most important to you.
Fantastic. Great advice. And as Columbus said, there's so many resources out there. If you don't know where to start, just talk to somebody. I have a playlist and channel and articles posted to help people getting started. And I'm building that library by having great people like Columbus share their perspective and what worked for them and what didn't work. So I'd say use that network, use those resources, start small. And as he said at the beginning, figure out what's most important to you, or flip that around. What would be most inconvenience, most annoying, or most terrifying? And start doing that. The reason I got into prepping is I was too stressed out worrying. I kept worrying about all the things that might go wrong, or I was worried and stressed when they happened. And I finally decided if I was prepared, I wouldn't mind. It wouldn't be as bad when they happen. So, when COVID happened, it was awful. It was
Yeah.
unfortunate,
Yep.
but I wasn't nearly as stressed as most people. I knew I knew what would happen. I knew what would be available. I knew there would be a run on groceries because we have
Hmm.
ice storms and hurricanes. So I knew that we had what we needed. I wasn't worried about the water supply yet, but I knew, like you said, I've got a water tank. I actually bought, it's called a water bob. They sell them on Amazon for about $20. It is a 100-gallon collapsible water tank that fits in your tub. So if you ever think you might run out of water, you fill
That's
it
a
up
good
in your
one.
tub. It turns your tub into a 100-gallon water tank, and it has a pump so you can pump water into other containers. So if I have an emergency, sorry, guest bathroom, you're now water bob tank. And now I know I've got 100-gallon plus my tanks plus, water jugs and also water bottles. I don't like disposable water bottles, but they're really convenient. So I have stacked up water bottles. If neighbors or friends needed drinking water, I can dip into that and I don't have to give away my really nice, like you said, the water cubes, which are really nice. They're a little pricier. So
Mhm.
I have I have cheap water for people that I like less. Well, Columbus, it is always great to see you and talk to you. I can't wait to get to see you with some of Amy's live events, hopefully coming up here in the fall. Would love to have you on again to talk about more exciting adventures in prepping. And then also tap into, if you get a chance, connect with Columbus on LinkedIn. Tremendous wealth of information. And, you saw kind of on the personal side today, he is equally as talented and even more knowledgeable on the professional side. Just one of those great people that I would always be honored to have you on a team I was working with. So thanks for taking time out this evening and out of your day to talk.
And it's always a pleasure. Thanks for sharing with me and, putting the guides for better tech and better living out there for all these years. It's impacted me, and I know it's impacted a lot of other people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Please stay safe and healthy. Tune in again for more exciting episodes. I'm also launching this morning, actually, quick guides. I'm going to try and do some short 5 to 15 minute little videos when maybe I've got a rant or something's bugging me or a quick tip. Just something that's a little smaller, a little more digestible, and a little more focused. So look for those. If you have any ideas on topics, areas you'd like to cover, if you'd like to be a guest or have a suggestion for a guest, please let me know and would love to have on a future show. Thank you all. Be safe and healthy.